anyone hear me? Check. Check. I think I've got it short. I do have an alternate Hey, hey. Anyone? Check test. Okay, give me just a second here. Okay. Turn this to on. And let's see if that's any better. Of the fun of live production. Might have to rent or order something. So can you hear me now? Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry that's yeah, well, so here, let me mute that so that I can't hear it. Yeah, so here's what's going on. I have a headset mic and it had a short in it. Well, until today, until right now, I did not know that it had a short in it. I was suspecting it was going to develop one. So, since I was playing the audio through ProPresenter, I thought that what I would do is take my AirPods into my computer and route that audio through ProPresenter. And then that would get to you. And I think that that's working fine. So that's a good backup. Always good to have backups in live production. So uh, Ed says, tinny but perfect. Yeah, sorry. The static should be gone now. So let me see here. Let me just type this in the chat. So I'm here. Let me clear this out and we'll get going. Okay. Yeah, Christy's saying it's good here. Make sure that you're caught up to the live stream. It could be that you're a little bit behind, Ralph. There. Okay, good. Okay, sorry about all that. Uh, Let me go ahead and I'm gonna mute my local audio so that I don't hear myself like 30 seconds later. Okay, so problem solved, at least right now. I'll try and figure that out later. Okay, so now we're good to go. Sorry it's going to be a little tinny, but I'm glad that it's at least I had a backup plan. Okay, so let's start talking about some of the stuff. We did have a question. Well, first off, let me welcome everyone. So let me scroll back down here. Hi to Sony John. Hi to Julia. Hi to Ralph. Hello to Nicholas, Dave RH. Julia and Dave are watching from England, so that's fun. Hi to Laura from Edmonton, Alberta in Canada. And hi to Ed. Hi to Death Valley Farmer from Central Ontario. Wally from Central Ontario as well. So good to have you. Let's see here. And I think that's everyone who has gone ahead and said anything in chat. If I didn't call your name, go ahead and say hi in the chat so that I can see you. Hi to Laura and Christy. And I'm getting close to it here. Okay, so always fun stuff. Well, welcome one and all. I'm going to try and use my um, my AirPod for audio since there was a short in my microphone. So got to figure that out before I do the live class, the 3-hour ProPresenter Accelerator class that you're all invited to attend on Saturday. That's the basics one. I'm going to start off with the basics, go through everything I can cover in 3 hours, and then we're going to basically pick up the following Saturday where we left off. So just so you know, if that's something that's interesting to you, I'll post a link in the chat later on. Okay, right now, let's head over to ProPresenter. I think it was Julia that had a question. Julia was asking if there was any way to lock down a presentation because there was some helper that was going in and messing stuff up. Okay, let me go through a couple of strategies. There's not a, oh, just do this kind of obvious thing. So we're going to have to get to it a couple of ways. First off, you might want to lock down the computer so that only certain people can get into it. And that way, that kind of limits the universe of potential people that have caused problems. So do that first. Don't leave it logged in like this. Make sure at the end of everything that you at least put it to sleep and have it to where it shows up with the login screen, things like that. So that is the first thing that I would do. Also, if you go into where the presentations are located, so here, let me show you this. We go, and be careful with this setting because it can cause things to disappear. So I don't want you to actually hit anything. I just want you to go down here to ProPresenter, then Settings or Preferences. It's the exact same thing. It just depends on the operating system you're using. And then Advanced. From there, you see where it says Support Files? This is where stuff is located. So you could click on this and it will show you where this is. Just do not navigate to a different folder. Do not click select. Cancel is your friend in this, but that's where everything is located. And you'll notice that there is a playlist folder right here. So what you could do is you could basically lock down that folder and then go in and unlock that folder anytime you want to do stuff. So less than ideal, but those are kind of the two strategies that I would have. Let me show you where they are. So it very well might be different for everyone, but notice that I have this playlist folder right here, and I can, in that playlist folder, you could, depending on your operating system, in macOS there's Get Info, and then you can change the read-write permissions to make it to where it's only someone with this staff and everyone can read it. I just make sure that it's only set there. You can also lock it right here. So once you do that, you have to go back in here and unlock it before you can make any changes. So that's kind of the stuff that I have for you. I wish there was kind of a present only mode in ProPresenter, but this is partially a training issue. So do make sure that, first off, you lock down the computer, but secondly, that you're clear with everyone, hey, do not change stuff without communicating fully because it does cause problems. So let's see here. Okay, so I thought we would cover some more advanced techniques today. Um, there is something that I didn't cover on Tuesday, or sorry, a week ago, Thursday, when we first started, that I thought would be worth talking about. Again, there is just so much inside of ProPresenter. Quite literally, I could teach on it for probably 10 hours and cover most of it. So these 3 1-hour classes really just, they scratch the surface. So let me talk about bringing in new presentations into ProPresenter. So if we go back here, if you wanted to create a new presentation, you could go to this plus and then new presentation. You can also do file import. Someone just walked to my front door. Okay, file import, and then there are a couple of different choices. I tend to use either file or text from clipboard. I don't have a CCLI login because my business isn't a church and CCLI won't sell me one. So I really need to get it from my church. But I am showing you also, I'm wearing a Multitracks t-shirt today. You can also import stuff from Multitracks. But let me just import the text from the clipboard here. And let me go through some of the different stuff here, because once you know this, this can save you a bunch of time. So the first thing is slides delimited by. What that is saying is, where should ProPresenter look? And then say, okay, once I find this, I'm going to create a new slide afterwards. So in the case of let's say you've got a document that has, well, here, let me show you one. So if I go to, where is that? Right here. Okay. I've actually got a document here. So this is A Mighty Fortress is Our God. Let me download this because this is actually, it uploaded it to the cloud, and so that sometimes causes some issues. So anyway, so I've got this set up with title, colon, then verse 1, colon, verse 2, etc. So the word then colon, that's a signal to ProPresenter to ignore that and use that information to label the slides. So title, verse 1, verse 2, it will automatically label those slides as title, verse 1, and so on. So I've got that. Notice how it's set up, like this is a paragraph, then a space, then this is a paragraph, and so on. So let's say that I want to import text with 3 lines per slide. Now you'll recall back that there were much more than 3 lines. So if I chose, instead of line break, if I chose paragraph break, it would break it at the paragraph. That's too much for this particular song. Instead, I'm going to choose line break. So every line, it would separate it out, except we have this, delimiters per slide. And what that is saying is, how many of these do you want on a slide? So I want it to look for lines, and how many lines? In this case, 2, but I said I wanted 3, so I'm just going to change that to 3. change this to your largest screen, just as a rule of thumb. And then a theme is nothing more than kind of a theme is nothing more than a shortcut for what font to use, what color of the font, how big is the font, where's the text box located, that kind of stuff. So I've selected this theme right here. Notice that'll give you a little hint of what that looks like. So that's basically what it's going to look like. Then I need to decide where I'm going to save this. So I'm going to save this for the senior adults because it's a hymn. And then what playlist to put it in? Well, this is the one that I'm dealing with. So let's put it into that playlist. And then import. And I was looking for some parts for my robot vacuum earlier, so just a second. I thought that I'd actually hit File, Import, File, but instead I did Text from Clipboard, so that's why it did that. So instead we're going to do this, File, and now this is going to let me go to that file right there. Remember, that's what it looks like now, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 lines. So it's going to separate this into 3 slides per verse if I use it with these exact settings. So what should it look for? Line. How many of those? 3 per slide. This is the resolution. This is the theme it's going to use. It's going to save it to the library, the senior adult library, and put it into this playlist. So now I can click import. And just like that, I'm done. I could absolutely use this song as it is because I'd put verse 1 colon before that particular verse. It's even set up to where I could use the arrangements ability inside of ProPresenter without making any other changes. Now, notice here, I told you a little wrong earlier that title colon would disappear. And the reason for that, and quite frankly, I haven't done a tutorial on my YouTube channel about that ability because I reached out to Renewed Vision to get a list of all the words that did this. And they said, yeah, that's kind of left over from the old time. So it's different between Windows and Mac, and any of them might quit working at any time. So this used to say title right here, but now in the latest version, 7.13.1, it doesn't. So there that is. Let me real quick, I'll go to your question in just a minute, Wally. So you'll notice these little letters up here in the corner. Those are called hotkeys. So with this song selected, I can, with the tap of a single button, jump to any verse. So whether that means that the Holy Spirit moved or the worship leader forgot where he or she is, I'm not judging. I'm just saying, as the ProPresenter operator, I didn't know that we were going next. So it doesn't matter the reason why I didn't know that we were jumping ahead. Now I'm responsible for fixing it. So if it was verse 4, for example, I can just tap F and it pops there immediately. If I'm verse 1, A, pops there immediately. This might seem random, but there's actually some method to the madness. For verses, there are hotkeys inside ProPresenter for 6 verses. If you put your fingers on the home keys, starting with A, and you look to the 6 keys, including A, to the right, A is verse 1, S is verse 2, D is verse 3, F is verse 4. So A, S, D, F, verse 1 through 4. G and H, 5 and 6. Kind of obvious when you know what to look at. Now you might be thinking, well, that's fine for verses. What about bridges? Well, bridge starts with the letter B, and so let's do B for bridge or bridge 1. If there's a secondary bridge, N for bridge 2, and M for bridge 3. So there are 3 bridges that you have hotkeys for. Chorus starts with C, so chorus 1, that's easy, but we want to have 3 of those. The problem is if we went to the right, as we did for bridges and verses, we could only do B and V before we ran into, C and V before we ran into B. And so instead for choruses, it goes to the left. That's the exception to the rule. So just by knowing that, you can hop around inside a song really fast. What if, you didn't realize it was verse 4 until, or let me make this a little harder. You didn't realize it was verse 2 until after you were nearly done with the first slide of verse 2. Well, you can do 6, enter. And you might be thinking, well, why do you need enter? Simply because notice how I've got 10, 11, 12, 13 slides in this particular song. If 1 took you to slide 1, then you'd have a problem when you went to slide 10. So you can type in the number and then enter, and it'll pop you over there. And you can always click on this. You can hit the space bar for the next slide, the left arrow key for the previous slide, etc. So you've got some flexibility when it comes to how to interact with the slides layer. So there is a question from Wally, and hold on, let's see here. Yeah, Laura also suggested to make frequent backups of playlists so that if something does change, you can just go back and revert it. That's a very good idea as well. So anyway, Wally was saying, this is literally my first question. Just created a file on my Windows box, emailed to Church Mac, and the slides backgrounds are non-existent. Slides are there, but no words backgrounds. Okay, so the first thing that I think of is anytime you're going from Mac to Windows or Windows to Mac, you want to make sure that you've got the exact same font in both places, because sometimes it gets confused if you make it in your Windows machine and you back it up and you send it to your Mac at church, then if it doesn't have that font, that could be a problem. Secondly, I'd make sure that what you're doing is, here, let me show you. File and export. Presentation bundle will get you the entire grouping of slides, just this song, along with the background. So make sure you do that. You can also export the playlist, which should get you the whole shebang. It is possible to just copy individual songs because they are individual files on the hard drive. Although technically, most of us have solid state drives nowadays, but they are individual files on the storage drive. Doing that might cause some interesting things, especially with backgrounds. Also, this is something that started in ProPresenter 11 is they changed where a particular thing was located. Now, knowing in retrospect, it never made sense that it was where it was, but some people were getting to the point where it caused them problems because they were using it in a way that Renewed Vision did not intend. So that is starting in 7.11, right click here, edit slide. Before that, you see this background up here in the upper right hand corner. This is a presentation level change where you can add a background. Now that's not going to show up because if we go into ProPresenter and settings, and then I think it's under general, although it might be screens. No, it was screens. Yeah, ignore background colors. I've checked that. So if I uncheck it, then this background color will show up and that would hide any backgrounds. If it's white, that's not going to be obvious. I mean, that's going to be pretty obvious given that I had it set that way. But if that background color was black, you might think, oh, that's just showing something. So I'd make sure that that was unchecked. Well, unchecked here, and also on the individual slide, there's also a background color. That it's actually not there, it's here. So make sure you have that checked in the ProPresenter preferences or settings so that that's not the cause as well. So exported it as a presentation. We'll try a playlist. So, yep, I think what I typically do, maybe I'm a little overcautious, is I'll export each individual presentation, which is all of the songs. So each song, sermon notes, etc., individually as a bundle, and then I'll also export the playlist by itself. That way I've got it coming from a couple of different ways. So, yep. Oh, hi to Fred from Florida. So, good to have you as well. So, we've got people from, I think it was South Carolina, England. I think we had someone from California, a couple somebodies from England, a couple somebodies from Canada. Good to have all of you. Again, I apologize for the tinniness of my sound. I had a short in my regular microphone, so we're kind of making do with my AirPods instead. So, nice to have that flexibility in ProPresenter that I could connect to my computer with my AirPods and use that. If you occasionally hear some scratchiness, it might be my beard up against my AirPods, so I apologize for that too. Okay, so going back to show mode here. By the way, show mode is kind of your default. Don't read too much into show. They're not saying that your church service is a show vacuous of any deep theological meaning. They just needed to pick a word, and so they picked a word. So, along the top here, by the way, we've got, these are the modes you're probably going to spend most time in. So we've got the editor, which I was just in, and a lot of people default to doing work here, but this is the most powerful, but it's not necessarily the fastest depending on what you're trying to do. I'm going to change some of your lives here in just a second by showing you the reflow editor. So with reflow, I can, for example, get rid of that title text pretty quickly. Here, let me delete that. Okay, But so you remember that I set this up to have 3 lines per slide. What if the worship pastor says, we used to like 3 lines per slide, now we're going to do 2. How do you fix that? Well, what you can do is put your cursor, click on it where you want the slide to break, and down here, insert slide break. That doesn't necessarily look like a button, but it is one. So I can hit that and it will split there. Now, that only has 1 line. How do I solve that? Well, I can click right here and use the backspace button, or on a Mac keyboard, it's the delete key that's where a backspace button is on a Windows keyboard. And then I can go back to combine those 2 slides. So then I can go down, and instead of clicking the insert slide break, on a Mac, it's Option Return, and that does that. Or on Windows, I think it's Alt Enter, does the exact same thing. So I can quickly go through real quick here and split this up. It was the case that there were 9 lines here, so that's not evenly going to split up amongst 2 lines. It's the way math works, right? But you can see how just that quickly, without creating new slides or copying or cutting and pasting and all that stuff, I've changed the number of lines. 6 months later, the worship pastor says, I told you that we wanted to do 2 instead of 3. Now we want to do 4. So now you can go back in here and we can combine things just this exact same way. Backspace, delete key, etc. And now we're done. So save you a bunch of time using that, and go from there. So the reflow editor is just really good for that. Something that I do is, if I was going to have my pastor create sermon notes within ProPresenter, I would have, in this case, we've got a male pastor, so I would have him go into the reflow editor, type stuff, hit enter here, insert slide break. That gives me a new slide. Now I can type more stuff, insert new slide, can type more stuff. Sorry about that. That was a little keyboard shortcut that I inadvertently hit in Text Expander. But you could see how you could really quickly just go through and just put in your sermon notes really fast. So that's another use of that. And if you need to delete something, just backspace and delete it. And you can get rid of slides just as easily. So Reflow Editor is really helpful for that. So, any questions thus far on any of the things that we've covered? I do have some more advanced stuff that I want to talk about, including I want to show you what I did when I realized that my mic was having issues, because as I said, I had an idea, and so I decided that we would go for that idea, and that seems to have worked using just the AirPods that I carry around in my pocket. So oops, dropped a little bit of condensation onto my keyboard. Should be okay with that. Should I have keyboard issues? I've got another keyboard, so that's no big deal. So let's go back to show mode here. Next, let me show you a few things about the Bible. I think that we talked about this maybe a little bit. Some of the classes are starting to blend together. I also did one for my members. So let me, first off, you can choose the translation you want. I've loaded all of these translations in here. They're all public domain except the New Living Translation, which I bought just so that I would have a purchased one that I could show people. I went into options and then Bibles, and then notice the New Living Translation is set to installed here. I could click Get Bibles to purchase additional ones, or if my account had one, I could have clicked the install button that you saw there just a moment ago. For free ones, I can do here, and then I can go through my list. Notice that they're organized by language, and you'll notice that a conservative version is number one. I've already done that. American Standard I could install just by clicking install. And since it's a public domain Bible, then it'll just download and it will be good to go here in just a moment once that does that. So going back here to slide options, I can show or not show verse numbers just with that check. Break on the verse or not, display the translation or not, preserve font color, helpful if you've got a red letter edition. Maybe you want the red letter words of Christ, but I've said it before, the ink created that they used to write the original manuscript of the Bible was in all likelihood black or brown, so kind of a dark color because it was a do-it-yourself kind of thing. You didn't go to the stationery store to pick up factory-made ink. No, someone who was writing probably made their own ink with the recipe that whoever taught them how to write probably taught them. So preserve font color or not, that's up to you. Then we have where we put the references. You could do no reference. You could do on the last of the passage, on each, or if break on verse is selected, you have verse references as an option. You can choose your theme. So yeah, I've got this Bible theme right here that I could choose. And notice I've got a couple of options, so I could choose that. And then I'm ready to go, and that imports it into the Bible Passages library. Notice that it's asking where I want the text, and so it also shows me how big that text box is. So I created this, and this is a good sized text box right there. So that's the one that I want for verse, and this is the one that I want for the reference. And then I could do my funny life verse, Acts 26:24. That's not the one that I have tattooed on my arm. And then I could click that and just show it if I wanted to. I also could add a second translation if I wanted to. So let's say there's a couple of reasons why I might want to have a secondary translation, or even more. I'm going to click the minus to remove that. Maybe I want to compare the translation between the same language. Say, oh, the translators use this word here and this word here to kind of approach the meaning from a different way, because no word is exactly the same between two languages. Well, maybe like the definite article, like the, is the same between two languages, but most others have little shades of meaning. So maybe that's something. Maybe I've got a congregation that speaks another language that is in worship with me as well. And so you have like an English version and a Spanish version, for example. A third reason you might want to do it is the pastor might want to show the original Greek and say, okay, this word right here means this. And so you could show the English that the people in the congregation probably read, and the Greek, which they probably do not read, or the Hebrew from the Old Testament, with the exception of part of the book of Daniel, which is Aramaic. So you could do that. So that's a fun little thing. So we've created this. I can click this to put this up. And by the way, this says, and while he made his defense by these things, Festus said in a loud voice, Paul, thou art mad. I would have thought art, but okay, thou art mad. Much scholarship is driving thee into madness. So that's my funny life verse. Found that in college when I was a freshman and a little overwhelmed. So I can also save this and select into the selected presentation, so the one that we're dealing with, which that put that in the end of A Mighty Fortress is Our God, or I could save it to this playlist as its own thing, or the save as just puts it into the Bible library that I created earlier. So that's something else that I have. A couple of these other things here is the stage editor. So for the stage screen, the screen for the people that are leading up front, I can send them different information on a per slide basis if I wanted to even. So this one is great for for people that are singing, because it'll give them the current slide song. I've actually tweaked this, but it'll give them the current slide's text, and then for the next slide, it shows that up there, along with the system clock and a few other things. I could also, so for this one, what I have done is, it doesn't look like much, but what it is, when I clicked on this, you'll notice that this is filled with a screen preview audience. So I have 5 screens that I've added in my instance of ProPresenter. The first one is for the congregation. So basically what this does is when I switch to this layout, people on the stage can see what is on the screens that the people in the congregation are seeing. So this might be good for if you're playing a video clip. You don't have to have the pastor do this action. It's also good for when you're doing announcements. If you've got a announcement slides up, then you don't have the my youth minister when I was growing up called himself the minister of announcements, because he always did the announcements. He wouldn't have to do that action either. So he could just continue to glance down at the stage screen and see that information. So that's a good use for that as well. There are really a bunch of different things. You could add Planning Center Live, so it can have the countdown that's coming from Planning Center Online live. You can show what the current group color is, what the label is. If you're capturing, so live streaming from ProPresenter itself, or just recording from ProPresenter itself, you could do that. So we've got a lot of flexibility here in this, and we can make different stage screens that lay out in different ways. So that's something that's really kind of fun, that we just have that amount of flexibility inside of ProPresenter. Are there any questions that I can answer? Anything that you need clarification on before we move on? We've got about 10 minutes left. Might go just a couple minutes longer because we had that problem initially with my microphone. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to switch over to show you this. This is what I'm doing on Saturday, and there's a special price until midnight tonight. So if you like what is going on here and you would like to have a 3-hour version of this where we start off with the basics and we cover all this stuff. We could do that. We're going to do that on Saturday. And that's for your entire church. So you could invite your pastor there if your pastor is still stuck on PowerPoint and makes presentations that look like Bill Gates announcing Windows 95. You could bring your pastor along for that. You could, if you've got the kids ministry that's always bugging you, how do I do that in ProPresenter? No problem. They could be a part of it as well. And they can watch that from your church, or they can, you could all have a get together and, order pizza or whatever and watch on the big screen, or they could do it at home. And if they can't make it when this is going to be, which is noon to 3 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday, then, and that's 9 to noon Pacific. So great time for those of us that are in the continental US. Also for our friends in England, it would be in the evening time. So great time for you to do that in the evening time. So normally this is like a $300 thing, and I've got a sale going on until midnight Eastern tonight. So about 8.5 hours from now, where you can go ahead and take a part of that and join me this Saturday or next Saturday, where we pick up where we left off and do more intermediate topics, or both. And all of those come with the replays for the appropriate one. So if you buy the basics, you get the replay for that for people that couldn't make it, or if you want to go back and watch it later, and watch it as many times as you want for as long as you want, by the way. Same thing for the intermediate one, is you can watch that one after I'm done editing that as many times as you want, and share that with people at your church. Just your church, by the way. I don't want the entire denomination you're a part of joining, or your friends from the church across the street. None of that. Just on a per church basis, it is a much better price if you go with both of them. So I'm going to copy that and paste that in there, and then we can go from there. It looks like I do have a question, and I'm absolutely going to answer that here. So, AIS Maryland says initial setup Windows Documents is under OneDrive, which seems undesirable. Is there a way to force ProPresenter 7 installation to put the library somewhere else? Absolutely. So remember, if you were here when we first started, I showed you this page in ProPresenter in Windows. It's called Preferences. So I'm going to click on ProPresenter, then Preferences will be right here instead of Settings, but everything beyond that will be the same. And we're going to go to Advanced. So what you can do is click under here for Support Files, and that will bring up a navigation window like here. And so you can navigate to another folder that you want all this stuff to be in, and then select that folder. You could create a new folder as well. Again, on Windows, the dialog looks a little bit different, but I'm fairly sure that you know how to navigate to where you want it. And once you do that and you click Select, quit out of ProPresenter, and then move stuff from where it was to this new location. Make sure it all downloads, then restart ProPresenter, and it should be in this new location. And you're right, OneDrive or iCloud, either of those is less than ideal. Earlier when I was showing you the A Mighty Fortress is Our God, at first it didn't want to show it to me because it had been uploaded to iCloud, and so ProPresenter wasn't seeing it. It saw that it existed, but it didn't see it, so it needed to download it. So it took a second. That's not the biggest deal, but with videos, it takes longer. So it could be causing problems where you have the video in ProPresenter, and then when you go to actually show it, if you hadn't done it before, it just can't find it. And so that's a problem. If you had the entire shebang, the entire ProPresenter folder in OneDrive or iCloud, and quite frankly, any other cloud service, and it had deleted the local copy, then you open up ProPresenter and everything's missing, and that's no good. So you just want to keep that in mind, that sometimes these cloud services, which are helpful for most things, they're not helpful for ProPresenter because it's dealing with a lot of data, and just getting that and all can cause problems. So yeah. Are there other questions? If not, I do have something else. I'm going to click cancel because I do not want to move this. If I were to accidentally click on libraries here and click select, then it would move everything into this libraries folder, including making a new libraries folder. So it would be all kinds of screwed up. So that's something that you don't want to do lightly. You want to do that not 5 minutes before church starts. You want to do that with some time to tweak things if something goes awry. But that is where you do it. So I actually had a big list of things, and we have covered one of them. It's just the case that there is so much with ProPresenter, including hacks, tips, and tricks that Renewed Vision may have not intended ProPresenter to do, but it absolutely can do. So let me show you this one thing that when we first started, I went in and I changed stuff real fast, and that's how my AirPod is able to send the audio into the live stream. So what I did was I went into ProPresenter and Preferences or Settings again, and then I went into Inputs. So I added an audio input. You can actually see the waveform right here. And there are 4 settings up here. Auto on, which turns it on when a certain live video source is selected. Auto off, which turns it off if a foreground video with audio is playing. Off, just off. But I turned it on because I knew while I was in here, I'm going to want to use it on the entire time. I could add some delay here. I could change the gain here. One important thing here is routing. This is something that I made sure that I did. So you'll notice here on the preview window on either side, I've got 2 sets of bouncing levels. Those are for channels 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I had unselected, let's say 2 and 4 here, then it would have sent a mono signal, so one of your ears would be lonely. It'd be like, I can't hear it out of the other ear. If you only had one earbud in and it was the wrong one, it would be totally blank, and you'd be like, what? Why can other people hear and I can't? So this, where it says ProPresenter channel, there's a built-in audio router inside of ProPresenter, and this is one of the 2 places that you interact with it. The other is under audio up here, and you can change the number of channels in that ProPresenter audio router. This page has 3 of the 4 audio destinations listed, the 4th being the live stream, which you interact with in this upper right-hand corner. But you can do the audio routing here. So if we go here to main, you'll notice that my ProPresenter channel, it's getting channels 1 and 2 that is going out to the live stream. That's how I've got this set up right now. and it's going out uh, channel 1 in ProPresenter and channel 2 in ProPresenter are going to channel 1 and 2 on the device. And that says Me TV, MI TV. That's actually an HDMI output of my computer. So that's how that's working. So that's a quick overview of that. Looks like Christy uh, has a question, and AIS Maryland may have a clarification as well. So let's head over and take a look at that. So it says, tried your suggestion. However, if you actually look inside presentation after move with something that can display characters, it seems to show links back to the original location. Not sure what the links are actually pointing to. Well, that's why once you have that set up, you want to actually download them from OneDrive and move them into the new location. So I think that's probably the piece of the puzzle that's missing. So Christy from Texas says, media shows in my preview box, but text doesn't. Even when I use the sample playlist to test things in training, the lyrics don't show over the media background. Have I messed up a setting? Maybe. So in the upper right hand corner here, right next to where it says live, there's this little icon. I call it Groucho Marx glasses. It's just glasses with a mustache. It's like me if I shaved. That's what it looks like, right? Think of that as a disguise. So this is the looks preset choice. So what we can do is click on this and go down to edit looks. And I'll show you how this works. So along the top, we have a list of all the different screens, all the different audience screens, not the stage screen, and not the screen you're using to control ProPresenter, but the audience screens. So I've got one just called audience. I've got another one called alpha, another one called vertical that I'm using for this guy, by the way. And then another one called CCLI that I'm not using. I use that in the tutorial that came out this week if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. So not actually using that, but notice how next here we have a list of words. These are different layers within ProPresenter. If, as I've done here, you uncheck that, then this hides the text. That's another thing that we had the question earlier about, well, the text is there, it's just not showing. Also worth looking at is make sure that this is unchecked right here. Or make sure it's not unchecked. So in this case, this is the audience screen that I've got. If I uncheck that, notice how that disappeared. If I check it again, it shows back up. So down here we have different presets. So this one is doing something different than this one, and then this one. But the default one right here is the one that I've got set up. So I can switch between those pretty quickly. If you want to just bring things back to the way that they were, you can just click on this plus button right here, and that will create a new default look, and it's exactly default. So you can right click and change the name if you want to, but notice everything is checked. Has all Ghostbusters symbols, which means I'm not using an alternate theme. And the mask also has Ghostbusters symbols, meaning I'm not using any masks. So this is the default for all my screens. And I can switch between those up here by clicking here and selecting a different one, or I can right click on any slide, add an action to change the audience look. change the disguise, how it looks. And then when I click on that slide, then it would automatically change over to that. And it'll stay that way until I click on another one that has the same action on it, or I go back up here to the upper right hand corner and select a different one. Either way. So I will say the question initially saying that he brought in the text, there is one other thing, and this bit me probably about a month ago at church. Somehow someone had turned this on. You see where it says stage only? The idea behind that is to turn off control of the audience screens. So let's say that you've got special music and you want to put up lyrics for the person singing, but you don't want to show those on the screen for the congregation to see. You just leave what's up there before, turn that on, and then you can continue on, and then you can click to turn that off. You can use the keyboard shortcut Command 1 on Mac. I think it's not Command 1, Command 0 on Mac, or Control 0 on Windows. And you can also do that with an action on any slide. So that's something else that I forgot to tell you to check. And Christy says, thank you, that was the problem. See, don't feel bad about not knowing stuff, because there is so much to know. I just learned something Tuesday in ProPresenter, and it was something that's been there for at least a couple of versions. So there's so much to know, but that's why, I learn all this stuff so that you're not bumbling around in the dark trying to figure it out, so that I can make it nice and easy for you. Which brings me back to the ProPresenter Accelerator course that I'm doing on Saturday. Here we go. Remember, until midnight Eastern tonight, I've got a special price. It's going up tonight, and at that time, when it goes up, that'll be the price up until we get started at noon on Saturday. But I would love all of you to join me. It's a way that in a couple of Saturdays you can really get up to speed with ProPresenter, and split that amongst everyone interested at your church and just go. Whether the church budget covers it, or you say, hey, there's 11 of us here, everyone give me $20 and we'll all pitch in. Either way, that'll take care of it, so do it like that. And there you go. So it is about 3:38. I have a call. The people with Church Facilities Expo in the fall in Texas want to talk to me about maybe presenting at that. I did the smaller event, CFX Essentials, in, I think it was late April in Charlotte, North Carolina. So might be in the fall for that. I've got a couple other conferences, one in Louisville, Kentucky, and another in Nashville in the fall that it looks like I'm definitely doing right now. So if not, I hope to see you then. It won't be 2-3 hour classes. It'll be a class here, a class there, an hour each. So, but I do love meeting people, and I'd love to meet you. So, okay, everyone, have a great day, and I will get this replay, do some light editing, make sure the audio is synced up, cut off the beginning and the end, get that uploaded, and I'll email you out that probably later on today. Maybe this evening. We'll see. Okay. Hope to see you on Saturday or the Saturday after next. If not, you have a great day. I hope that some of this gets sorted out for you. If not, and you can always watch my YouTube tutorials, although we're coming up on 200 of those, so it's a pretty intense time commitment if you did want to watch all of them. 172 right now, I think. Okay, Talk to you later. Bye.